IT Nation Grow. Had the great pleasure of attending IT Nation Grow in December 2024 at ConnectWise headquarters downtown Tampa. Great event. Talk about mergers and acquisition, about growing your MSP. There was buyers there, sellers there. Just a great event and a great community that's being generated from it. I had a great opportunity to talk to 10 individuals while I was there. Really great conversations, really diverse group from very different backgrounds, some MSPs, some bankers, some PE firms, some vendors, really great conversations there. And I enjoyed every single one of them. It got crowded at particular points. Some of the audio might be tricky. It was a great event, IT Nation Grow, December 2024. I look forward to doing many, many more. Thank you, all 10 of you, for your time spending your time with me, having a conversation and listening to my questions. Thanks again.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. I found myself at 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. I took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People ask me, how'd you do it? What's the secret? I need to lose weight. How'd you do it? How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others.
So I during my early childhood, I lived in Portugal. So my parents are retired. We went to Portugal. I was 11 at the time.
Okay.
So my parents are from northern Portugal, right on the border of Spain. So one of the things that we lived off the land. So whether it was potatoes, corn, grapes, and wine, and chestnuts. So that was part of what I got used to now at an early age, and so I just connected with Mother Nature. So my parents own chestnut trees, and part of what we did was, we harvest them, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was something that we did, during late October until late November. That's the season.
Wow.
Early December, depending. And so once I came back to the States, I was 16, went to school here, finished up. I wanted to get reconnected somehow, to make sure that I went back. And part of what I want to do, especially after I got married, was leave a legacy for my kids overseas. So I got into the chestnut business by accident. My cousin's over there, and he's like, hey, there's this really need to do this type of business. Why don't we do something? And, it's not that we all have to do all the harvesting, because at this point, what is it, 5% that I'm harvesting? Everything is, the rest is really, owned by other farmers.
I see.
So we would buy, we would go to those producers, buy off of them, small farmers. And then also go into Spain, because we're right on the border, and buy off of those farmers, and then we'd wholesale it to the Italians, and the Italians most likely would ship it here.
Wow.
So yeah, that's something. So I'm a very silent partner in that, but I love the whole deal behind being part of that. It's something different, and it's fun. It's not like it's a money maker and I'm going to retire.
Right.
On it, but it's just. It's part of being part of that community too, and giving back. And so for me, any reason that I have an opportunity to go back and be part of that community overseas in Portugal, I love doing it.
What are some of the other applications for chestnuts other than just eating? There's no chestnut butter.
No, there's not. It's being used for bread, or it's also being used for consumption for feed, for cattle, for sheep.
I
So
see,
they're
I
doing,
see.
So there's different applications for it.
I see. What's the difference between Portuguese language in Portugal and in Brazil?
It's just a dialect, right? It's like a Texan dialect versus a non-Texan
I
dialect.
see.
So it's more of a dialect.
I see. So, but we can understand each other. I was told that some people in Brazil, when they talk to Portugal, they actually revert back to English.
No, I wouldn't necessarily say. You can have a conversation. They'll use certain
Phrases? Yeah.
and words that are not really in the Portuguese dictionary that is their own. Just like in Spanish, right?
I see.
You have a
geez.
Spanish dialect from Spain, and
Yes.
then you have the Argentinians. Two totally different.
Yeah.
Right?
Hell, Catalan right there in Spain is a completely almost different language.
What about the Basques?
The Basques as well.
The
yeah.
Basque is like it's not even close to Spanish.
Yeah.
Even in the border of Portugal and Spain, which in northern is the Galicians. They speak more Portuguese than they speak Spanish.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
So my father's from Italy, and it's only kind of slang though. It's some of the words are different, but generally you can understand each other.
Oh yeah, I mean you have the Northern Italians
Yes.
versus the Sicilians
Yes, the
versus
Napolitan,
Napolitanos or the
yeah.
Calabrese. They have their own different
Right,
dialects.
yeah.
So it's always and same thing in Portugal, right? In Portugal, there's different regions. Even on the islands, like they sound like they're singing almost versus
The Azores,
Yeah. There's more of a nasal type of pronunciation in the words that they have. But yes,
Is
you can pick it
Benfica
up.
your team?
No, how
No.
dare you?
I'm sorry.
I'm a Portista. I'm from
Portista.
Porto, so I'm a Dragão. So I believe blue. I don't believe red
Right,
on that
okay.
other team, whatever you want to call it.
Those are the big soccer football
Yes,
teams.
I'm a big soccer
Yeah,
fan.
me too.
I'm married to an Italian,
Ah.
so when Italy and Portugal play,
Wow.
we go to separate places.
I say.
Not even in the house. We have to go to a different place
geos.
completely.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ronaldo's your hero.
He is.
Of course he is.
Yes,
The best ever.
He's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT.
It's tough because my wife's sister married an Argentinian, so
boy.
it's always the
Ronaldo
it's always
Messi,
the
yeah.
Argentinians versus the Portuguese.
Yes,
so
yes.
it's hard. It's hard to compete with that one because obviously Messi won a World Cup.
Right. Current World Cup.
Well, if you want to
champions,
say won it, or I think they gave it to him, but whatever. It's okay.
It is okay. Yeah. And I'm a Manchester City fan, so we've got a couple of Portuguese players on
Yeah,
there.
you guys are not doing too hot.
No, not this year. Current champions, but still.
I'm a Man United fan as far as the Premier League is concerned.
I see.
So I have nothing to brag about.
Right,
He's going through a rough patch, but
Yes.
he'll get there. He's got
Injuries.
Guardiola. So,
Guardiola, yeah. Who's Spanish, but Silva is Portuguese.
Bernardo Silva's Portuguese. You
Wonderful.
have Ruben in the back.
Oh, Ruben, yeah,
And then
yeah.
you
There's one more. I know Silva.
on Man City.
Yes, that's City. I can't think of him right now, but always wonderful Portuguese players. Ever
Yeah,
since I
we
was-
have a good farming system.
Yeah.
So for a small country of 12 million
Right.
people, we've produced some good players in the last 20 years. So
So you had your MSP
Yeah.
in New Jersey.
yeah,
And
so
what?
so I formed my MSP back in 1997, and it was by accident. I love telling the story because it was a side hustle. I worked for a large hospital system in northern New Jersey, and through the years, I got to be very friendly with some of the doctors. And then at one point in there, and I think it was in 2000, excuse me, we were doing a PACS implementation. And PACS is the picture archiving system. Everything is digitized.
I say. I'm
So
familiar.
part of the things that we were doing was we were offering it to the physicians, mostly the orthopedics, right? And they had a way to send somebody to get an MRI or an X, whatever the case may be, and that they can see this digitally, and they would want to be able to see it from their office. So my job at the time, part of being the project manager there and running it was, I have to spend some time with the doctors there. So through that process and getting to know the doctors, they were like, hey, we could really use some help with doing this or doing that, because they just, didn't have the right equipment at certain points or the right configurations to order, in order to, to use the PAC system remotely. So it started as, hey, Nelson, after, you're done with the hospital for the day, would you mind coming here? I was like, sure, why not?
Sure.
And then Rory got out. Then the orthopedist told the urologist, and the urologist told the ENT guy, and then the ENT guy told the gastroenterologist. So I came to a point where I had to make a decision. Do I continue to go down this path, or do I start my own business, right? So, my thought process was got the whole family together, my in-laws, my parents, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and I said, hey, here's the opportunity that presents itself.
Wow.
I really want to do this, but I need to bounce this off. So, my Italian father-in-law goes, well, you need to make sure, I'm going to use his accent. I love you, Nino. Rest in peace. He goes, you need to make sure you have at least 6 months of money in the bank to pay the mortgage and your bills. Can you do that?
Smart.
I was like, I think I'm in a good spot. And my mom and my dad chimed in and said, listen, God forbid something happens, we'll back you up. So I needed that cushion or that comfort level to know if I get in the jam, I have that, but I didn't want to use it as an excuse to fail. Say fast forward, I grew the business. I was on one-man show and ran it, and my focus was really in northern New Jersey and Manhattan, and some of the other boroughs. That was kind of my focus. But I wanted really to look at other opportunities within the MSP world as it regards to client base, right? But I was led to really in healthcare. And as much as I wanted to get, look at other ways, I just got pulled in that way. So for me, it was okay, I'm just going to stick with healthcare. And it really worked for me. So, my success had a lot to do not only with the MSP community, but, with the healthcare community, where they educated me on their business and what's important to them and how they make money. What are the things that they need to do in order to be more sophisticated and at the same time be able to see patients and provide that really great patient experience. So for me, it was ultimately not serving the doctors, but how I served the doctors or my team served the doctors impacted patient care.
Wow.
You fast forward, in 2011, I made the decision to be, to go to IT Nation. And IT Nation, I ran into Scott Sorgan, and he told me about this whole thing about HTG at the time. It was like, okay. I was a sole proprietor. I didn't really have anybody to lean on. And there were other MSPs in the area that I was very friendly with. But at the same time, I just, I was at one of those that, hey, I'm not going to show you my cards type of thing, right? Yeah. And as a sole proprietor where you don't have a partner, it was tough to kind of bounce things off of folks. So I became part of HTG. I'm proud to say I was the first group that went to the farm.
Wow.
So that was that.
I've been there too. It's wonderful.
That was amazing. Yeah. Through that process, I got to meet several people. Part of my group, and in the following year, I became part of another group. I forget the number, so forgive me here.
Yeah, me too.
But Chris Jan from Medicus was there. Steve Leseski was there, who also had his own business out of Phoenix. Dave and Soren Patel had their also healthcare-focused MSP out of Orlando. And I was like, okay, this is really good. So the maturity level of where I was and where I wanted to go, these guys had gone through it. So I really got to learn from them. And it was an amazing experience. I would tell anybody that's listening, if you're not part of a peer group, you should definitely consider it. I'm in the position that I am today because of being part of those peer groups and having folks like Arlen and Scott and many of the facilitators and many of the members of that tight community. So I'm forever thankful of being part of that. And in 2019, I merged with Medicus, with Chris Jan. The beauty of that is we were already dating before we even got together as a business partners. So I knew what I was getting myself into, and it was the best decision I ever made. In 2019, and Chris wanted me part of that executive team to help them grow to that next level so that we can be in the position that we were in back in, recently in July, where we recapitalized, and it was an amazing outcome. So I'm very thankful for that. And those 5 years were amazing. And I think it challenged me. I probably worked harder in those 5 years than I have in my entire career. But it was also 5 years of developing me as a person, developing me as an executive, developing me as a father and a husband. I think it brought a lot of things to perspective. You know, I hear a lot of things during these sessions. I'm like, yeah, I remember that. Oh boy, I'm glad I did that. Like, so there's things that are very relatable to me, that because I was part of HTG at the time and then IT Nation evolved, it prepared me.
Yeah.
And I think for those that are listening, invest in time in understanding where you are and where you want to be. If you're not part of a peer group, become part of one. Because just like any other person that starts a business, it's your baby. We keep hearing that term, right? But it's also your nest egg. And I see so many instances where people are not taking the time to really focus on that, to see the value of the organization. They're running the business as a lifestyle and not really a business. And they're doing an injustice to themselves, to their families, and to their employees. And I think once that light bulb went off for me, it changed kind of my focus on how I wanted to grow the business. So now here we are, and I'm taking some of that experience in my 25 years of being in this industry, and I'm spending time with with MSPs that are evolving, that need that support, or that need that kind of little poke, or leadership or advisory or whatever you want to call it, to kind of get to that next level. So I'm spending some time in that world. Some of them, hey, we want to get to the point where we go to market and we get a great outcome out of it, and they compare themselves with other organizations. And what they don't understand is they don't understand the intricacies of those organizations, how they got there. And for me, it's to kind of give them a little bit of wake-up call to be like, you can get there, but in order for you to get there, the time and expectation and the work that you need to do versus what you think you need to do is you're not aligned. So here's how you get there, but here's what the realistic opportunity that you have. So my job is to grab this apple, and if it's dirty, I imagine this being an MSP, is how do I shine it up for them, so that when I present it to you, like, well, that's a great looking apple. So that's kind of my focus and what I'm doing. And part of that is also, working with some investors that are looking to grow their platform or their portfolio, and being in this industry. And I know there's a lot of MSPs that are getting a whole bunch of calls from these guys, and I think that in certain instances it gets exhausting for them. Like, oh, I got a call every week, I don't want to talk to these guys. They may be interested, but it's like it's being overdone. So what I have found is some of those private equity groups or investors that are trying to grow their MSP platform, or trying to build an MSP platform, or relying on guys like me to provide them with some advice on, well, how do we approach it? How do we have those conversations, right? Because they can make 40, 50 calls, and they'll never get a return or an answer, where I can make one and I will most likely have somebody answer on the other side. So I think it's part of that as well.
So we're here at IT Nation Grow in downtown Tampa, ConnectWise headquarters. What are some of your goals here, Nelson?
Honestly, I haven't been part of the MSP community for the past 5 years. I went to IT Nation, and the bug was there.
Yeah,
I
sure was.
got to be part of this community again. So,
you see us all our podcasts?
oh yeah, I went to Podcast Row for sure.
Yeah.
Got to spend some time with people I haven't seen in a while. So it was great to connect. Was happy to see Arlen. He was gimpy at the time, but he's much better now. So it's great to see him and a lot of the folks from back in the day that I hadn't seen. So it's great to connect with the community for sure. Here at IT Grow, which is my first time here, I really wanted to understand, what are the buyers looking at, what are the sellers trying to do, understanding more and more of the community, and those that are trying to infiltrate themselves or be part of this growing vertical that I think is going to, really make some impact here in the next few years. There's a lot of investment in MSPs, and I think there's a reason for it, and I think it's, the only way is up.
So you're here trying to represent sellers. You want to work with MSPs.
Yes, I that's part of what I'm doing, yes.
And the idea, why would an MSP want to work with you, Nelson?
I think it's, it's a good question. I don't have a secret sauce. I have 25 years of experience, gone through, I sold my business, then recapped Medicus, and part of that whole thing with my 5 years with Medicus was, we went through a whole bunch of acquisitions, learning the pros and the cons and some of the, successes, but more important, some of the challenges that we went through and how we overcame those. And I think that experience puts me in a unique position to be able to provide some advice for folks. So.
Has there been anything in the last month or so, Nelson, that you changed your mind on?
I think that in this market, I didn't think it was such of a seller market. Everybody wants a piece of the MSP pie.
There's more sellers than buyers. Yeah. I'm sorry, there's more buyers than sellers.
Yes, and it's amazing to see. I go back and I compare from the time that I was in it to where we are today. It's like tenfold.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I learned that there are more buyers than sellers. I think the sellers are educating themselves a little bit more, but at the same time, I think that some of them are also not educated enough to understand what their value really is. And I think they need to start somewhere to really understand what their value of, as not their, the business value, but also their, what are some of their objectives and where they want to go, and to really understand that. And, Arlen and Scott, talk a lot about that, and, knowing your personal wealth value and knowing your business wealth value. I think those are two important elements that, MSP owners need to go through that process, right? Because in the world of this MSP, the majority of the MSPs are under $5 million. They're small, businesses that are going through a process. And I think that understanding the industry and what it has to offer is very important. So educating them on, hey, here's what you need to consider when you're going through this process. So you have to go through this process, but you got to be prepared to go through this process as well.
So Nelson, I started my MSP in the 90s. I'm from New Haven, just tri-state,
a little bit north of us,
it's a little north of you. Yeah.
Are you a Patriots fan?
I am.
Well, I'm sorry for that. Sorry to hear that. My team beat you twice
Patriots
in the Super Bowl.
Patriots and Yankees. Yeah.
I'm a Yankees fan. Okay, so we're good there.
Yeah. Well, we're maybe not so when losing just the World Series and losing Mr. Soto to the largest contract.
Please, that's okay. He can go.
Yeah, almost $800 million in 15
That's
years.
crazy.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah. I wonder who the first $1 billion player is going to be, because that's the biggest in all sport. Even in Europe, that's the largest contract. Although they're paying Ronaldo like $100 million a year, but it's not.
They paid him like two and change for 2 seasons.
For 2 seasons.
Yeah, his contract is coming up. Yeah,
it's amazing.
He's 37.
Yes, he's 37, and still in tremendous shape.
Yeah,
tremendous.
His body is his temple.
Oh my goodness.
That's a good thing for him.
So I started the MSP in the 90s, and I was working way too hard and not paying attention to my own well-being, unlike Mr. Ronaldo. And I'm at the doctor, and I'm at 340 pounds, Nelson.
Wow.
And she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. Scared the hell out of me. I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel, upset with how did I let myself do this? I put everything in front of myself, and now I've got this family. I've got a daughter. I can't. So I spent the next 6-7 months, lost 130 pounds, kept it off. You can't look at it as a finishing line, right? It's something you got to make lifelong changes.
Sure.
And so I tell people this, and they always, what's your secret? What's your secret? And there's no secret, Nelson. Discipline. That's how I
100%.
Willpower, routine. How does discipline play a role in your life, Nelson?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you where it doesn't play.
Oh.
And really, I would tell you in my health. Like you're mentioning, and it's kind of hitting me hard, right?
Yeah.
Because I recently went through a process where I did some blood testing and things did not come back.
Whoa.
as well as I wanted them to, and I knew that. It wasn't a surprise
Right.
to me. I'm a type 2 diabetic, unfortunately, and I wasn't really paying attention to it. I really got caught up in the last several years and really my work, and that is what I'm passionate about, right? And I love to eat. I'm a foodie. Unfortunately,
too.
that's who I am. So that's been a discipline that I haven't. I'll tell you, one of the disciplines that I have is really from the leadership perspective, is really truly focusing on being a servant leader. I think there's not many of us out there, and I think that it's continuing to focus and spend time on mastering your craft. And for me was, what is it that, it's self-reflection. And I think spending time in self-reflection to understand where your strengths are, but more important, where your weaknesses are, and staying disciplined to check yourself. What are the things that you can do better? I think that's super important. Be true to yourself. So that's always been a discipline that for me is important, and I continue to focus on how do I, and it's just not from a business perspective, right? I think from a lifelong time of experiences, for me, it's, I have this new motto is, how do I add more memories to my catalog? And that's memories with my family, with my friends, with my loved ones. That's what's important to me today, right? Is I'm at a point in my career and in my life where that has a priority. That is the priority. So what am I doing in order to make more of those memories?
Good for you.
Yeah. So now it's about adjusting my discipline, right? And I think my discipline now needs to be on my health. I need to have that priority. So priorities change. This is now my biggest priority.
Certainly so. Well, thank you so much. It's great meeting you. Great talking to you. Anybody
Thank
listening, watching, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so best way to reach out to me is you can email me at nelson@portaliagroup.co. Portalia? So it's see if you can figure that out.
Portalia. So I would say Portalia.
That's correct. So
Group?
that's group.
.com.
Yeah, so let me give you the behind the scenes. That.
Yes.
So my wife is Italian. I'm Portuguese. She came up with the name. She came up with my prior company name too. So I said, hey, why don't you come up with a new one? Anyway.
I say. My MSP was Forza.
Forza. With a Z.
Yes.
Oh, Forza Italia. Anyway, so you can also call me at 201-952-3748. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn, so I'll be happy to connect with everybody there. So thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Forza Italia.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.